In Canada, engineers and engineering technologists work closely together on projects, but they have distinct roles, education paths, and responsibilities. Engineers require a bachelor's degree from an accredited university program. This is typically a 4-year program with a focus on theory, design principles, advanced mathematics, and scientific foundations. Technologists, on the other hand, typically go through a 2 to 3-year program, which can be from a college or technical school, and it focuses on practical application and hands-on skills. The scope of work is divided in similar ways. Engineers typically focus on planning, design, analysis, and theoretical problem solving. They are responsible for signing off on designs, ensuring compliance with codes and safety standards, and overall project management. And they have to take legal responsibility for engineering work. Technologists usually work under the direction of engineers on design, drafting, inspection, testing, and maintenance. Some technologists are also involved in project management and troubleshooting. My co-host Michael Tolboom recently spoke with Desiree Pastorin about her life and work with Associated Engineering. She can tell you a little bit more about the CET designation and her career path on this episode of AE Live.
Coming to you on the internet, audio, all my STEM homies know AE's where you gotta go. Shuffle to the rhythm of the Grandma Michael groove. It's a whole new pure plur interview. Treat your ears to the gist of careers from the list of our engineers and scientists, maybe twisted up with technologists. It's a podcast, baby, and not to be missed. Got more fly than a ripe banana, like the salmon caught the stamina streaming across Canada. Like a trade show cabana, got that swiggity swag, and the 411 for my horse Niagara. AE Live, don't you know we're gonna innovate? AE Live, got a topic here to elevate. AE Live, here to entertain and educate. AE Live, oh! AE Live, don't you know we're gonna innovate? AE Live, got a topic here to elevate. AE Live, here to entertain and educate. AE Live, oh!
To talk more about water treatment plant design, the technologist life, and more, I'm joined by Desiree Pastorin, Certified Engineering Technologist. Desiree is a civil engineering technologist and project manager in our Winnipeg office. Thanks for joining me today, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Michael.
Desiree, I know I roped you into this interview by promising to talk about nothing but cocktail recipes.
Yes. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Okay. But first, let me get one or two things out of the way here.
Okay, fine.
I have to start with the business stuff first, because, you know, that's where the millions of listeners are, or why they're tuning into us.
That's fair.
Yeah. So you have a diploma in municipal engineering technology from Red River College Polytechnique. I think you might be the first technologist we've had on the podcast. So you're going to be bringing a very unique and interesting perspective to the same old that people are tuning in for.
Hopefully.
So I would like to hear about the road that brought you to this point, as I'm guessing it's going to be a little different than many of the tales we've heard so far from our engineers and scientists.
Very likely, and maybe not in the way that you think, because I was a bit of a late bloomer in terms of post-secondary education. I worked for a school photography company that was based in Winnipeg, that did, photography for all of North America, essentially. Oh. And I worked there straight out of high school. So I actually thought I was going to stay there forever.
I would not have thought that they were doing municipal engineering.
No. So what happened was I was working there right out of high school, and, I kind of moved up the ranks and ended up with the research and development group there. So this was in the era where you weren't just getting printed photographs anymore. There were calendars, there were mugs and things of that. Like there was, digital retouching, so that way your pimples and whatnot wouldn't show up in your school pictures. And it was in the age of trying to digitize things. So I was part of the group that helped to develop the processes that would allow them to be mass produced. So I thought I was going to stay there forever. I was happy there. And then one day there was an announcement that they had gotten bought out by their competitor. Wow. And it was a huge shakeup for everyone there. And I took it as an opportunity to try something different. My position was guaranteed, so I wasn't at risk of losing my job or anything. But I took a severance package, a buyout, and then I went back to school. Now, because it was considered a layoff, I was also eligible for employment assistance.
Nice.
Which was great because they paid for half of my education. So tuition and books and everything was half paid. And then while I was in school, I also was able to collect EI, which was amazing. And the only two multi-year programs that they supported in that was nursing and engineering technology. So I'm not the type that would go into nursing. So I chose engineering. And it wasn't until in my first year that I realized how much I enjoyed it and that it was the best decision I had ever made. So
you didn't have that calling like
no,
so many of the people that we talked to on this.
Not at all. Not at all.
I was a kid and I saw my dad build a car from scratch.
No. Well, I mean, I was always interested in how things worked. My dad renovated a lot of the homes that we lived in and stuff like that. And I was always interested in that. I was always interested in building and puzzles and Lego sets and taking stuff apart and trying to put it back together. So I guess maybe in another lifetime, I did take that route and had that calling and there was just some residual stuff in the background, but yeah. And then, the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. That wasn't the story I thought I was going to hear.
No.
Was there a moment during that process that you realized that water was going to be the focus of your career?
Not at all. No.
How widely did they spread the net as far as engineering disciplines in that course?
We covered, some geotechnical aspects. We covered water and waste. Did a little bit of structural, but it's in the second and third years that you had to pick a discipline, and I chose municipal because it had a wider range of available job options for after school.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily anything that I was particularly interested in, honestly, and it wasn't until I actually got in there that I was like, yes, this is the perfect fit for me. So.
Wow.
And then for water, I didn't choose that either, to be honest. I had a professor of one of my classes who actually used to work for Jeff, our branch manager. And he came up to me and he said, you know what, my old boss, they're looking for staff. This was about 6 months before I was expected to graduate. He said, they're looking for staff and I recommended you. So are you interested in meeting my old colleague? And I was like, sure, why not? So met with Jeff. He, sold me on everything. I went with it because Jeff was a great guy. First off, he was a great guy, great to talk to. Told me all about the kind of work that they were doing. It all sounded interesting enough.
Jeff probably is going to be listening to this, right?
Probably.
You can tell us the real story.
The real story. Okay, yeah. Jeff would not stop talking. I think I'd said maybe 3 things in the whole meeting. But yeah, he told me about what they do, what the company at the time, what they were about, the kind of atmosphere and environment it was. And I said, you know what? Might as well try. It was really attractive because then I had my future kind of already planned. I didn't have to stress over finding a job later. So I finished school, accepted the offer from Jeff, finished school, and then wrote my last exam on a Friday afternoon, and then started with Jeff and Ken Monday morning.
So for our listeners, might be thinking, why would I want to go through a technologist program versus like an engineering program? What do you think would be the pros and cons of that?
Well, I'm biased. It is a short, yeah, it is a shorter program. I mean, so it does have that advantage. Plus, I think in general, college, and technology is more focused on application and not necessarily all of the theory behind it. So we can get to the same conclusion, but we just go about it in a different way. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Didn't have to get too stressed about work, or about school and yeah.
Do you think the job finding process is much different between the programs? Like, did they help you
Yes.
identify things?
Yeah, so it was a 3-year program, and in between each kind of session, there is a co-op work placement.
Okay.
And that is a requirement of graduating, that you have at least 8 months, I believe, of practical work experience. So that's another plus, right? You graduate and you're not totally green. You've seen some of the things that, you know, you're going to be expected to be exposed to in the work environment. So that was really great too. It wasn't that I was coming in going, okay, now what? What am I supposed to do? Like,
did they do that placement for you, or did you have to?
You had to apply. So it was just as if you were applying for any other job. And like consultants and organizations, they would post job postings with the college. And then there was a database, and you know, they did help with trying to find placement for people if they had difficulties. But for the most part, I think all of us did really well in that.
So can you tell me a little bit, give me a little bit of a quick primer on what your job entails on a day-to-day basis, a typical client interaction?
Well, we're, as you know, Michael, we're a small group here in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
But we have a fairly big backlog of projects and over a wide range.
And growing quickly?
And growing quickly, yes, almost out of space here. My role primarily is, well, I'm one of the project managers, and typically that involves the changeover from design to construction, and that's where usually my role kind of gets amped up. I'll participate in design reviews and you know, sometimes do the drafting and things like that. You know, pre-design reports, functional design reports, capacity studies, things of that nature. And for the underground portion, like sewer and water and lift stations, I'll lead those designs typically. And then it's really during construction when Ken, as the lead designer, he'll hand that off to myself or Colin in our office as well. And then we take care of all of the construction. And then in terms of construction, it's, you know, it's being the face of the company in front of our client and the contractor, right? I'll be the main point of contact if there's any concerns, handling all the meetings, change orders, discussions, site instructions. Sometimes I'll even do some of the site reviews across multiple disciplines. So I really get exposed to almost everything in a project lifecycle.
So as the project manager, you're kind of the point person for
absolutely
when
yeah.
they want to send boxes of chocolates
or alcohol,
or maybe something a little different.
Sorry, you could edit that part.
We're coming back to the cocktails, I promise you. So is there a favorite project or something interesting on your plate right now that you can share with us?
Right now, well, for favorite projects, probably one of my most favorite projects is our regional water treatment plant that we built for a municipality. And that was one of my very first in which I led the construction administration side of things. It was a big regional plant and included upgrades to 2 satellite reservoirs and then 70 kilometers of pipelines to connect everything.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was the first one that I had kind of led, and I was exposed to all of it because, like I said, we being a small group, we would also do a lot of, you know, the rebar reviews and witness concrete pours, and then you know, check process piping and see the progression of all of the disciplines in terms of construction. And of course we were supported by those discipline leads, right? From our other offices within the company. And it would be a lot of, you know, talking with them prior to a review, say, what should I look out for? What are some key things that you want me to take pictures of? And then coming back to the office and then going over it with them, even though we're not physically in the same space, to ensure that everything was being built appropriately.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been great. And so that was my first project that really stands out. And the other reason why it really stands out is because we went in and it was a bit of a, not hostile, but everyone had their backs up. Our client was very cautious around consultants to the point where they wanted to hire a third party kind of project manager to oversee us during construction.
Wow.
Right. And we were able to convince them that, you know, it's not necessary. we're here in your best interest. We'll administer things fairly and things of that nature. And they were cautious, but they let it happen. And then by the end of it, we had a successful project, didn't have a lot of, major issues or anything like that. And then, I just heard recently that same client, even though I'm not on another project we're doing for them, they're asking for me. So Ken went out to a council meeting, and one of the first questions was, "Where's Desiree? Why isn't she here? Is she going to be involved?" So, I mean, I love that aspect of my job is being able to turn people's opinions around. And to some extent, I think when they perhaps realize that I'm not an engineer, that might perhaps help things. So I'm not coming in there telling them what to do or why something should be that way. It's more of a collaborative approach. I can explain things maybe in a different way to help them understand.
Right. Nobody's ever happy to hear that I'm not an engineer.
No, I'm very happy. This is the only reason why I agreed to do this interview.
So you've been with our Winnipeg branch since it started up in 2011, and there have been a few significant events in Canada in that time. There's been ups and downs with the infrastructure spending from the federal government, greater awareness of water issues facing our Indigenous peoples for sure, with all the boil water advisories and getting rid of that. Crisis like COVID, making people aware of their shared responsibilities in the world of public resources. Have you seen any change in the work that you've done over that time?
The biggest changes that I've seen is probably where we focus more of our efforts on, perhaps. I think it used to be we knew what the design was going to be and then we just executed it. Now there's a greater discussion of, climate change impacts, the frequency of droughts, floods, things of that nature, extreme weather events, and how our infrastructure can handle those type of events. And then also a big part of what's happening right now is the Indigenous consultation. Mm-hmm. So even though our projects aren't necessarily on reserves, there still is, that responsibility to reach out and get them involved, and have a say in the work that we're doing. I think that's been a huge change. And also that the technology, the reliance on computers and things like that.
I'm kind of intrigued by that end of things. Because like when you say the technology, that's right in your title, like the technologist.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, it used to be just, drafting, for example. It would just be a bunch of lines on the screen. And now, there's 3D modeling and using SketchUp so that way we could demonstrate to the client in a 3D perspective what things are going to look like. And they can appreciate things spatially rather than looking at a piece of paper with these lines. How it's
because people aren't taught necessarily how to make sense of that.
No,
right?
Not at all. And to some extent, like even when I first started this career, it didn't make a lot of sense to me either, right? And it's just that progression of things and how now everything is basically started as a 3D model. And then you do the 2D line work based on that. So that's been kind of neat too. And I could see where it's headed, and it's going to be less about that type of drafting. And especially now with AI and computer control and stuff like that, I think it'll definitely go in the direction where rather than drafting or drawing these lines and these pipes and these pumps, it'll probably just be typing inputs. Right?
Like you're telling the what you want
exactly
to achieve.
Exactly. I'm going to put a filter here, and I need to connect it to that tank over there, and then putting in
to stay out of the way of all these electrical
exactly
things.
And I need a valve for isolation, or we need to get rid of air there, or I need it to be minimally spaced at 1,000 millimeters apart. I think that's definitely the direction that things are going to go in.
Wow.
Because if you've ever worked with Plant 3D, you know that it has a terrible time connecting to adjacent pipes. So I don't think they'll ever take over all of our jobs.
I'll take your word for that.
Yes. So I think that's pretty neat. And there will still definitely be that type of involvement. You'll never be able to replace us because where computers are smart at knowing how things fit, they won't ever replace the experience that we bring, right?
Right.
I know that the reason why we're putting that valve there is because I know that, or I remember that an operator said, we had a really hard time when this thing failed because we couldn't isolate it and continue making water for the rest of the community, right? It's things like that, or making sure that they have multiple of this item or multiple of that item, or accessibility, those things.
Well, I know you and I were speaking very recently about a pipe in the ground that was at maybe a different slope than we had expected.
Yes.
And do you think that we're going to start seeing stuff like that implemented in AI, where the AI is aware of regulations and standards, and like it will design an alignment or a slope without necessarily you telling what's necessary, that it's going to pull from another source of truth?
I don't know. I think we're really far off from that.
Yeah.
Judy spoke about that in the last session, and I think we're far off from that. Where it is good at capturing little tidbits from here and there, and could go to probably inputs from regulators and whatnot. But I don't think we're in danger of that happening very soon.
I ask this in all my interviews, and in my own life as a graphic designer, we have the saying that good design is invisible. So in your field, are there successes or accomplishments that you feel are invisible to the public that are maybe going unappreciated or not, but something you want to let people know about?
I think it's the people aspect, to be honest. I don't think that it's appreciated to the extent that it should be, how much we care about the work we do. I think that sometimes clients and the general public think that we're going to come in and we're just going to tell them what to do, rather than it be very collaborative. I think what goes unappreciated the most is how much we care. When I start a project, I want it to be a success for our clients. Obviously, I want our designs to work and do it, with minimal disputes or any kind of issues like that.
And 100% of them do, right?
Yes, of course. But at the end of the day, it makes me personally feel really great when I hear from a client that, the project was a success.
Yeah.
Or even if there's an epic failure and something went very wrong, not necessarily our fault, but when there's a problem and it rattles their confidence in the whole system, it makes me feel really great to come back from that. And there's a couple projects where exactly that is happening, where there's an issue that has the potential to completely derail a project, but we're able to, talk them through it in ways that they understand and can appreciate, and then we can come back from that and leave on good terms, where they say, you know what, this went really wrong, but we fixed it, and they leave with a good feeling, right?
Yeah, you climb that mountain as a team. And
yeah, exactly. Because and even with contractors, truly, right? Like it's everyone as part of the team. It's not unusual to be sitting down as a group and everyone has their backup, right? Yeah. I'd much rather be in a room where everyone is friendly and joking around, and we'll get down to business. Because of course that's important. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to do my job. I know you're trying to do your job. And I just really want to have a successful project, really, is what it comes down to. And then our client gets what they needed.
Yeah, and everybody has a heartwarming feeling.
Yes.
The community is better. Yeah.
Yes. And that's what I love, because I've been ripped into by clients. But then at the same time, sometimes those same clients will, send an email and say, you know what, I think you're doing an awesome job.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel great.
They're passionate about their community,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
You want to see that kind of investment.
And so am I, because I understand that the value that we provide is not just for that project, it's the entire community, right?
Yeah.
We're providing water to them. Like, you can't beat that, right? It's the thing that everyone takes for granted. You could turn on a tap and it's right there, but it's everything behind that it's awesome to be a part of.
Well, with that, I'm going to wrap things up.
All right, now
we
down
can
to business.
talk about the fun stuff. Yes.
Right,
So
right.
as you know, my colleague Graham's doing a 5-part deep dive on
Chimichangas.
The chimichangas.
Yes,
that's right.
I love it.
So can you share with us either some chimichanga tips or history or your favorite cocktail recipe?
I must admit that I don't know a lot about chimichangas. Very delicious food. But cocktails, you know what? I like it to keep it simple. Good, whiskey on rocks. Pretty good.
Wow.
Vodka, twist of lemon,
interviewed your colleague,
Yeah.
Ken Anderson, who the listeners will have heard in a very recent interview here.
Mm-hmm.
And he also picked a simple whiskey drink. So
really?
Maybe it's something in the water here in Winnipeg.
Probably. Yeah. It's the stress. Whiskey on ice gets straight to the point,
The
right?
stress of being so awesome.
Don't mess around.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Desiree.
Thank you, Michael.
That was Michael Tolboom in conversation with Desiree Pastorin as she shared her story on becoming a certified engineering technologist and her career with associated engineering. Please join us again for another episode of AE Live.
Coming to you on the internet, audio, on my stem, homies know A's where you gotta go. Shuffle to the rhythm of the Gamma Michael groove. It's a whole new pure plur interview. Treat your ears to the gist of careers from the list of our engineers and scientists. Maybe twisted up with technologists. It's a podcast, baby, and not to be missed. Got more fly than a ripe banana, like the salmon caught the stamina streaming across Canada. Like a trade show cabana, got that swiggity swag and the 411 for my horse Niagara. AE Live, don't you know we're gonna innovate? AE Live, got a topic here to elevate. AE Live, here to entertain and educate. AE Live, oh! AE Live, don't you know we're gonna